This will sound very strange, but a flash flood in Hell's Gate Canyon National Park in southwest Kenya, near where Barack Obama was born, and Barack Obama's clip in a comedy sketch at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, in which he claimed that the scene in which the Lion King was born in the movie was the site of his birth. And also the flood backstage of the theater that hosts the musical The Lion King during the Manhattan blackout in July of 2019. And the Lion Air plane crash into the ocean, flood symbolism in 2018. And much more are prophetic signs from the righteous Christian God of the Bible that will be explained in this video for how it is known in advance that James Earl Jones, the famous actor and voice of the Lion King and the voice of Darth Vader, will die on April 11th, 2024. The date that this video is posted proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time, as does this time-stamped email and forensic notes PDF document. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. All right, this video is documenting the prediction that James Earl Jones, the famous actor, the voice of the Lion King, and the voice of Darth Vader, will die on March 25th, 2024. As we can see here, this email was composed on February 29th. Okay, February 29th is when this email is composed. All right, I'm interrupting this video to mention that it is now after March 25th, and this video was originally produced prior to March 25th because God was overwhelmingly pointing to March 25th regarding the predicted death of James Earl Jones, the voice of the Lion King and the voice of Darth Vader. The way in which God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel, is it works, well, the full intended meaning of God's prophetic signs cannot be properly understood, and I'm speaking of all of the prophetic signs, cannot be fully understood without their context and connections to other prophetic signs. It is a big picture of signs, which is only being explained on this channel. It is through these connections and context with other prophetic signs that God is telling amazing stories and revealing important, extremely important knowledge, which isn't being explained anywhere else except for this channel. And this is how it works. It works on trails of signs that connect to each other, that in this case ultimately lead to the date it is predicted, the event, the death of James Earl Jones. March 25th was one such step in the trail of signs. The signs that occurred on March 25th 100% confirmed the analysis. This will be proven when the prediction comes to pass. I don't expect people to believe this until the prediction comes to pass, but when it does come to pass, it will prove that the analysis for March 25th was 100% correct. And the signs on March 25th revealed adding an additional 17 days to reach April 11th, the date it is predicted that James Earl Jones will die. These signs that are extremely important and tell the story that God was telling through these signs and through the collection and connections of the signs are explained in the Apocalypse Now video on this channel. Obviously, when the prediction comes to pass, the wise person will know that they need to watch every single minute of every video on this channel. Now, also, it is being predicted that James Earl Jones and his death will be a prophetic warning of 7 days prior to the predicted solar flare. That'll be catastrophic and knock out the North American power grid. And God is using a metaphor of a lion's roar hence the voice of the Lion King for this coming solar flare. And along the way, the trail of signs for this goes through April 1st, which was, incidentally, 7 days after March 25th. The sign that we received on April 1st that completely confirmed the analysis was the death of 7 workers for the World Central Kitchen in Gaza. The World Central Kitchen is what is being pointed to or hints at what will come about as a result of the solar flare, which will be rationing of the world's food shortages. And this is why on this date that was a step in the trail to the solar flare, we had the World Central Kitchen prophetic sign, and that sign will be explained in another video. But let's continue with this important video, this video that explains the stories that God was telling through establishing these connections to March 25th, ahead of March 25th. The signs we received that were expected confirmed all of this, explained in the Apocalypse Now video, but the Apocalypse Now video does not explain the amazing stories that God was telling leading to March 25th. That is explained in this must-watch video. All right, the last 4 minutes and what I have just said were recorded on April 7th. April 11th ended up being another step in the trail of signs. But to say that doesn't even really do it justice, not to compare steps, but April 11th was so very, very profound and important. These signs that occurred on April 11th established it as a step which was predicted in advance, and the trail of signs continues on from April 11th, 36 more days to the date it is predicted that James Earl Jones will die on May 17th. April 11th was the day that O.J. Simpson died, or rather it was the day that the news broke that he died, and that isn't saying anything. To assume that you know some level of whether you will be interested in learning about that or not, simply by stating that is not possible. You need to watch the O.J. Simpson video. Obviously, the prudent person will know that they need to watch every minute of every video on this channel when the prediction comes to pass. But here we have, in 2024 anyway, a trail of signs, and it is an interconnected web. Each of these steps are connected to with multiple connections. But the trail of signs in 2024 went through February 17th, which in turn pointed to March 25th, which in turn pointed to April 11th, which in turn points to May 17th. If anywhere I get the dates wrong, I'm having this habit for some reason of confusing May 12th with May 17th. That is because May 12th is the date it is predicted that the historic barge will crash over Niagara Falls. And so if you hear me talking about May 12th in context of James Earl Jones in any place in any of these videos, please forgive me. I'm having a problem when speaking spontaneously into the microphone of confusing the dates. So anyway, the signs that occurred on April 1st, as I just mentioned, will be explained in the O.J. Simpson video. And again, you need to watch this video to know how it was that God was pointing to March 25th. You need to really, and again, I'll just say it again, you need to watch all of the videos to understand the big picture of signs, which is the purpose. God didn't create a big picture of signs for no reason. As I'm saying, it is essential that we learn about these stories and knowledge that God was communicating through these connections and this big picture of signs. Also, a minute ago, I mentioned a 7 days warning from the day it is predicted that James Earl Jones will die to the predicted solar flare that will be catastrophic and knock out America's power grid. That is actually more insight has been learned, and that 7 days warning applies to the Niagara barge, which has been known all along. But God has been combining these signs, the barge, or rather overlapping the connections and signs regarding the barge and James Earl Jones. Anyway, the barge will crash from a high height over Niagara Falls 7 days before it is predicted that Kamala Harris will crash from a high height in a plane crash in St. Louis on May 19th. James Earl Jones will die 88 days before it is predicted that the solar flare will knock out America's power grid. And that is because James Earl Jones is symbolic of the lion's roar, which is the metaphor God is using for this solar flare. And James Earl Jones is the voice of the Lion King. And he reprised his role in the new live action The Lion King in 2019 at the age of 88. There's much more to the significance of the 88 number and why it is that James Earl Jones will die 88 days before the solar flare, but that will be explained in other videos. In case you're wondering, the solar flare will be on August 13th, the 9th of Av in the Hebrew calendar, which will also be the day of the resurrection rapture event. And so this is a documentation that this prediction is being made ahead of time. There is also no news regarding James Earl Jones's health. That said, he is an old man, and so the skeptic will say, well, he is old, he could die any day, but that would be foolish because I'm predicting the precise date, but I'm also predicting that it'll be the same day that the historic barge will crash over Niagara Falls. And I'll explain why the two are related to each other. And I will explain why March 25th is, the purpose of it is that it is 7 days before April 1st and the predicted solar flare on the surface of the sun. Because as being explained in these videos, God is using a metaphor of a lion's roar for the coming solar flare that will knock out the nation's power grid. And James Earl Jones was the voice of the Lion King, hence the lion's roar symbolism, and why his death will be is predicted to be 7 days before the predicted solar flare. And that'll then surely cement the realization, the fact that this is a prediction and not just random chance if James Earl Jones does in fact die on March 25th. So this email is documenting the prediction that actor James Earl Jones will die on March 25th, 2024. There is no news at the time of this writing regarding Jones's health. In order to make this prediction more substantial than simply a prediction for the death of a 93-year-old man, it is also predicted that on that's a typo. On February 25th, the historic barge that has been stuck on the rocks of the Niagara River will finally break free and crash over Niagara Falls on the same date. So that's a typo, okay? That's not supposed to be February 17th. March 25th for the barge as well. James Earl Jones was the voice of the Lion King in the movie The Lion King. God has used this as a metaphor in his signs for the predicted lion's roar on the surface of the sun that will knock out the power grid in America, which is predicted to be 7 days after the death of Jones, which is the reason why the historic barge will crash over Niagara Falls on the same day as Jones's death. Niagara Falls and the barge are symbolism for Noah's flood and his ark, and God warned Noah 7 days before the flood judgment and destruction. That is the symbolic reason for the 7 days in between the barge and Jones's predicted death and the predicted solar flare. The movie, The Lion King, was inspired by Hell's Gate Canyon National Park in Kenya. On September 1st, 2019, there was a flash flood in the park that killed 7 people. In an allegory in Bible prophecy, Satan attempts to drown a woman with a flash flood. In Strong's Greek Bible Concordance, the word for Satan is the 4,567th word in the Greek Concordance. Okay, the word in Greek meaning Satan is the 4,567th word, G4567. This flash flood in the location that inspired the movie The Lion King will be 456.7% of a year before the predicted death of the voice of the Lion King. Now, I should have made that sentence better. I should have said, this flash flood in Hell's Gate Canyon, I should say Hell's Gate Canyon, the location that inspired the movie The Lion King, will be 4,560.7%, which hints at the word Satan, of a year before the predicted death of the voice of the Lion King, which is what makes this an astounding connection. But speaking of the power going out, on the same day that 7 people died in the flash flood, Pope Francis, speaking of the Antichrist, was late by 7 minutes for Mass because of a power outage in the Vatican that caused him to get stuck in an elevator. Okay? And that's beautiful because, again, the coming solar storm, and by the way, that day of the power outage in the Vatican, I'm getting off track here, but that was exactly 4 times 40 years after the Carrington event, which was the big solar flare eruption in 1859 that knocked out the network of the day, the telecommunications, or rather the telegraph system. Okay, and 4 times 40 years exactly is a hint at 44, the 44th president, the second of the 2 antichrists. And of course, the 44th president was born right near Hell's Gate Canyon National Park in southwest Kenya, which is the big reason for this prophetic sign at that location. God is revealing that, in fact, Barack Obama is the unconstitutional president. And so anyway, 7 people were killed in the flash flood, which hints at the dragon who attempts to drown the woman in the book of Revelation, and the Pope was late by 7 minutes because of a power outage. Noah's flood in the Bible begins in Genesis 7:11, verse 7:11. The Antichrist is the 44th president. The flash flood in Hell's Gate Canyon National Park is right near where the 44th president was born. The flash flood in the location that inspired the movie The Lion King occurred 44 days. You know what? I'm going to interrupt here. When Barack Obama produced his birth certificate forgery, in digital format only, the long-form birth certificate, which was proven to be a forgery easily discerned by 2 independent forensic labs that were hired by the sheriff, 2 independent forensic labs in Europe for reasons of unbias, hired by the sheriff of the 6th biggest county in the U.S., there were 9 obvious points of forgery. Well, anyway, right at the time that he did that, he had his at the White House correspondence or press correspondence dinner, in which the president typically gets up behind the podium and tells jokes. He joked with a clip of the movie The Lion King that was the scene of his birth, the iconic scene in which the birth of the Lion King. That was also the day he also, in that same joke-telling moment, told another joke with another clip of a parody of the king's voice, more king symbolism. Anyway, the day that he released his fake birth certificate forgery was the day of the deadliest tornado outbreak in the U.S. And that actually connects with 3,000 days and then 50 days, both numbers that hint at Pentecost, to the day of the flash flood in Hell's Gate Canyon, right near where he was born. But that's explained so many other times in other videos, I won't get into it. But it includes the flash flood, or rather the flood caused by the blackout in Manhattan, backstage of the theater that hosts the musical The Lion King. That was the 3,000 days, and then 50 days after that was the flash flood in Hell's Gate Canyon, the location that inspired the movie The Lion King. Well, anyway, the flash flood in the location that inspired the movie The Lion King was also 44 days after the release of the new live-action The Lion King movie, in which James Earl Jones reprised his role as the Lion King. It was also exactly 44 weeks after the crash of the Lion Air, and Barack Obama will become the president again through the predicted death of Kamala Harris in a plane crash. Well, anyway, let's move on. The release of The Lion King is 1,711 days, which hints at Genesis 7:11, before the predicted death of the voice of the Lion King. Okay, so there's another direct connection there for you. The release of the movie The Lion King to the death of the voice of the Lion King. And it's flood symbolism, which is relevant because of the flash flood and both floods. I just mentioned another flood with the Lion King symbolism, which was the Manhattan blackout on July 13th, 2019. All right, in the Bible, the Israelites enacted a symbolic 3 sets of 7 before the walls of security of Jericho collapsed in God's judgment. In this, they marched around the walls for 7 days. Jones is predicted to die 7 days before America's walls of security collapse, when the power grid is knocked out due to the predicted lion's roar on the sun. Jones is predicted to die 7 times 7 plus 7 times 7 plus 7 times 7 weeks, exactly, after a story went viral about a 3-year-old girl who wished for a birthday cake depicting a dead Lion King, Mufasa. The Lion King in the movie dies in the movie. Her reasoning was that others would be sad and she would have all of the cake to herself. This was the same day that the Elvis sign on the wall of security at the entrance of the birthplace of Elvis Museum was stolen in Tupelo, Mississippi. The voice of the Lion King was born near where the King of Rock and Roll was born, near Tupelo, Mississippi. Okay, so here we have, and also, by the way, the Lion King sign, the Elvis sign was his signature. It was the name Elvis in his signature, and it was on the wall, and it was stolen. And the wall was a brick wall, making it classic wall symbolism. This was a handwriting on the wall sign. This is an idiom, the handwriting on the wall, from the Bible, Daniel chapter 5. Verse 5, which is why to Memphis is on the I-55 highway. And so anyway, James Earl Jones is king symbolism. He was the voice of the Lion King. He played Jaffe Joffer in King Jaffe Joffer in Eddie Murphy's Coming to America. James Earl Jones read the King James Bible audio. And Darth Vader is Antichrist king symbolism. And anyway, he was born near where the King of Rock and Roll was born. And on the day of the Lion King cake sign was the day of the Elvis sign. Okay? And anyway, that day, like I'm saying, is a prophetic 7 times 7 plus 7 times 7 plus 7 times 7. This is a symbolic 3 sets of 7. Because it is 147 weeks, which is 7 times 7 plus 7 times 7 plus 7 times 7 weeks. And when the walls of security collapsed, the Israelites enacted a symbolic 3 sets of 7. And then the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment. James Earl Jones' death will be a hint at 7 days later and the walls of security of America collapsing in God's judgment. This is merely scratching the surface of the reasons for how this prediction is known in advance. For more information, please visit bitchute.com or Odyssey, spelled ODYSEE.com, video channels titled Harris Crash Prediction. Also read the website trumpprediction.com. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, TrumpPrediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the BitChute.com or the Odyssey.com channel. And do it now in case you aren't able to later.